Hey, I'm Sarah, here to do some yoga, and this is a great practice for your lower back, however it is speaking to you. And let's get started on the mat. We're going to take our spot in a seated position. And naturally our bodies want to go to that crisscross applesauce. I encourage you to let those feet separate a little bit. Get those sit bones nice and level. And then take those palms to either side of the knee, lengthen through the spine, and just close the eyes. Take a few sighs, maybe inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Just notice that breath. How's it feel? Maybe those palms stay facing the knees in a grounding space, or maybe they open towards the sky for receiving. Just draw the mind, the heart inward. Come steady and just listen. Begin drawing that breath, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Traveling from the belly, the ribs, up into the chest, and then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, down into the belly. Inhaling belly, ribs, chest, and then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. Taking those hands to the hearts and setting an intention for the practice today. Let that intention speak to you in this current moment, this space, this time. Inhale that intention with the breath. Let it travel from the heart into the mind. And exhaling, releasing it all the way out. Inhaling, this time sweeping those arms upward, interlacing the fingertips and gently floating those eyes open. And then relaxing the shoulders away from the ears. If you had your top of the mat facing mine, that's a beautiful place and way to set this up. The top of your mat would be your front. And then we're working over, tipping to one side. And centering up and tipping over to your left. And centering up. And one more time, teetering over to your right. And then teetering over to the left. Bending through the elbows just like cactus arms. Staying in that cactus arm space and looking over your right shoulder. Good, and then just gently releasing left palm to your left knee. The right fingertips just lengthening the spine. And then gazing right towards the center and walking yourself forward. So this might take you a couple inches. This might be a place where that forearm rests, or maybe even those arms extend. And if you're like me, I'm practicing outside and it is springtime. Life is awakening. Bring those hands in and then just shift those legs. Bring the opposite one forward. Interlace those fingers, draw them up, release the shoulders away, and this time tip over to your left first, and then your right. Relaxing those shoulders, and maybe the gaze is upward. Maybe the eyes just float closed. And it's just swaying like a gentle tree, gently swaying in the breeze. Beautiful. And then centering up, bending through those elbows, staying in goalposts, and just gazing over your left shoulder. Releasing those hands. Right fingertips travel to your right knee. And that left hand acts like a second spine. Just feeling the length happening. Beautiful. And then walking hand over hand, feeling that transition travel us forward. Took us outside for this practice as a way to bring in nature's soundtrack. And then as you're ready, walking hand over hand, back up, bringing those knees together, shifting over and finding your child's pose. So child's pose is beautiful with those big toes together, the knees nice and wide, and then we're reaching with our torso. And the hands, they might be comfortable just resting on the forearms. They may extend, but more than just resting the forehead, think about expanding through that spine, creating some length and space there. Beautiful. Gazing at those fingertips and gently shifting forward, staying on the knees and finding that kneeling plank position. We lower all the way down to the mat and lift up, gentle cobra. Hands press underneath the shoulders, belly and hips lift, and we reach back, child's pose. Inhaling with the breath, traveling forward, exhaling down, inhaling, and then exhaling, palms press in, and we extend back. We curl those toes under, lift the hips, and find that nice space for a tabletop position. Inhaling long in the spine, exhaling, rounding through cat. Inhaling and releasing through cow. Exhaling and rounding through cat. Inhaling and releasing through cow. Really just massaging that spine. Awakening any of those areas that might feel tense or tight. And just letting them release. Relax into them. Centering up with those toes curled under. Lifting the knees off, maybe half an inch. And then keeping those knees bent, press yourself back to tiger dog. Good. Shifting forward, we're feeling that floating tabletop position, and then releasing back to tiger dog. The knees stay real bent. We're nice and long through that spine. Feeling that heat and fire in the bodies. Inhaling, floating plank. Exhaling, tiger dog. Extending those legs, stretching the palms out, pedaling through that sensation of the heels, and then walking heel to toe, lifting those heels as we travel towards the tops of our mats, relaxing the head, neck, and shoulders, inhaling in a half lift, exhaling all the way down, and inhaling, reaching up into the sky. So those hands come heart center, and if we're not already at the top of the mat, let's go there. Inhaling up towards the sky, exhaling, sweeping everything forward. Inhaling, half lift, plant the hands, step the hands back, the feet back, not those hands. And we're on the toes or we're on the knees. lowering down. And if we lower on those toes, we come about halfway and then shift forward and find upward facing dog. Otherwise we work all the way down back into that cobra. And then everything lifts, hips and bellies, and we release back to downward facing dog. Widening the fingertips, lengthening through the torso, and then extending ourselves back forward. Inhaling, half lift. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, coming all the way up. Beautiful. Let's do that again. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, half lift. Exhaling, plant the hands, step back. So we can work on those toes or we can work on those knees, lowering down, upward dog or cobra, pressing the palms in, belly and hip lift, release back, and find downward facing dog. If those big toes aren't together, let's draw those big toes together. Release the shoulders away from the ears. Just taking a nice breath right here. Soft bend in the knees. We gaze towards those palms. The heels lift. Good. And then we lower those heels. Yes, and as we're ready, we can take that bend and step or hop towards those palms. Lengthening through the torso. Inhaling, half lift. Exhaling, forward fold. And then drawing everything up towards the sky. Right as we come up, those hands come to heart center and we release back into chair. So we can rest the hands on the thighs for support. I'm gonna wipe off this pollen that's coming all over me. It's pollen season. Maybe those hands are at the heart. And maybe those hands are behind, elbow to elbow. Just a nice opener for that heart. And we're recognizing the back. We're welcoming the strength that this pose invites. And we're using the belly, those lower abdominal muscles, to help support everything here. Releasing, inhaling everything up towards the sky. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, plant the hands. Step back into plank. You lower and lift on the toes or the knees. Shifting upward, dog or cobra. And then releasing back into downward facing dog. From here, we lift the left leg up towards the sky, keeping those hips square. And we lift the heel of the right foot as high as we can bring it. The knee of the left leg comes in towards the nose. And we release it back out. Inhaling, bringing the knee towards the nose again, and then a hand supporting to draw the leg forward. Resting the back knee down and finding that space. Softening into the lunge. From here, we'll open those arms back up to that cactus position or interlace elbow to elbow behind us. The right toes curl under and we lift ourselves up. High lunge. Plant the back foot and feel warrior. Warrior one. Just breathe in that space. From here, we're welcome to keep those elbow to elbow arms, or for a different sensation, we can interlace those fingers behind us, gaze towards the sky, and transition to humble warrior, where we lead with the heart, hinge from the hips, and create length in the spine. Allowing ourselves to let that heart guide us. And then the head follows. Maybe those hands release upwards. Breathe in this space. And then let the fingertips come to the lower back. Release all the way to the earth and walk hand over hand towards the side of your mat. Toes point forward and those hands come to the earth. And the wider we bring those feet, the closer the earth becomes for the hands. So take those legs as wide as they speak to you. In this space, we'll take the left hand and place it right underneath the nose. And the right hand lifts up towards the sky, maybe resting on our back as we gaze over the right shoulder, or as we extend those right fingertips up towards the sky. Wringing out any of those areas, feeling tense or tight, and then releasing down, walking hand over hand, back into downward facing dog. Inhaling and exhaling. The left leg lifts off again, bends in towards the chest, and releases down into pigeon. And as we're finding a pigeon, it's not so much about resting on the hip, but it's about staying on top, right where we're at. Feeling the sensations as they come to us, and maybe that means walking the front foot a little bit further out. And again, we take this opportunity to lead with the heart. Maybe it's those hands just creeping out. Maybe it's just taking that next right step for the body and spine. Coming into this space and place, possibly letting the head rest and release, and maybe coming onto those forearms. And just enjoying those sensations with the body, the mind, and the breath. Walking the hands back. We release out of this pigeon space for just a moment. And then bring ourselves back into downward facing dog. Big toes drawing together. Gazing at the fingertips, bending the knees, and stepping or hopping towards those palms. Feet are together. Legs extend as much as they feel comfortable. Half lift brings us up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, coming all the way up to the sky. Exhaling, again, finding chair. So chair today may just be a couple of inches, and that's beautiful. Chair may be a deeper bend, possibly resting those hands at the heart, possibly drawing elbow to elbow. Just breathe in the stillness, the here and now. Feel the earth beneath your feet. Feel those arms and limbs extending just like branches. Beautiful. Releasing those fingertips, sweeping everything up. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhaling, half lift. Exhaling, step back. Your plank, knees for toes. Lower however it speaks to you. And shifting forward, cobra or upward facing dog. And then release, downward facing dog. Good. Close your eyes in this downward facing dog and just feel that breath, that opening sensation through the body. I'm going to turn so you can see where my right side is for you. Beautiful. But inhaling up towards the sky and letting the right foot lift up towards the sky. Pulling the knee in towards the chest and nose, and then releasing it back out. Pulling the knee in towards the chest and nose, and using the hand to help draw the foot right between those hands. Nice 90-degree placement. From here, soft on the fingertips, lowering the back knee down, and letting ourselves come up. No sharp pinches, pressures, or pains happening through that lower back. And if we feel them, adjust. Maybe backing off slightly, maybe adjusting the distance and space of the legs, maybe even just relaxing and softening the body in general. So the hand can stay here. It might like the goalpost, cactus arms. It may like connecting elbow to elbow. From here, the left toes curl under, and we press into the feet and extend ourselves up into our lunge. The right leg is forward, the left leg is back. And we allow the back left heel to plant itself into the mat. The right toes are pointing forward, and we gaze up as we transition to humble warrior. Leading with the heart. This humble warrior could take us a couple inches, and we stay right here. Our humble warrior might be a deeper expression. It might be continuing to lead with that heart and then allowing the head to follow. Softening into that space. And just soaking in the stillness. Releasing those fingertips all the way to the earth and walking hand over hand to the side. Those toes point forward. And we draw this time the right hand beneath the nose, left fingertips to the small side of the back, gazing over the left shoulder, possibly extending those fingertips towards the sky. And as much as those hips want to start acting like sassy teenagers, we keep those hips nice and level. Rotate through the spine. Exhaling, releasing everything down, and then walk your hands to your top of the mat. Keep walking those hands, hand over hand to the top of your mat. Step yourself back. Find yourself in that plank position, and then work through your chaturanga, how it speaks to you. Not how I do it, how you're gonna do it. And let your just body breathe with that space, however you feel it, that lowering and lifting, and eventually finding yourself in downward facing dog. You still have your right leg working, so the right leg lifts off towards the sky, and then the right leg comes forward, finding that pigeon stretch and space. Again, as much as the hip wants to release and fall, we stay on top of it. Expanding into that space. Maybe closing the eyes and just visualizing the space between each one of the vertebrae before we begin leading with the heart. Expanding from the tailbone all the way through the crown of the head. And just being still. Just listening with that breath. Beautiful. Maybe floating those eyes open if they were closed. Coming back with the hands. Releasing the right leg back. Giving it a little wiggle. And then big toes together. Nice wide knees. Releasing back into child's pose. From here, we walk hand over hand, lifting the hips, and draw ourselves to a seated position. Again, coming back to that space. Just for a moment, maybe we receive and ground both together, and maybe we find ourselves fully grounding or fully receiving. But as we come into these moments of stillness, these final places and spaces within us, softening the shoulders away from the ears, take just a moment to bring yourself the front of your mind, visualizing a forest of trees. It's wintertime in this forest, and you notice those trees they seem barren. In many ways they look dead. The life seems to have left them. Not a leaf is left on them. The branches seem like only one wind gust away from just being a broken twig on the earth. But as you stand in this forest, in this cold, seemingly dead space, you pause and look around at the stillness. And you ask yourself, in this moment, what grows here? You begin to see that as much as you think these trees are distancing and separating themselves one from another, what they're actually doing is turning inward, digging into their roots, preparing for future expansion, growth beyond anything they've experienced before. And as you stand in this space, you begin to feel and see that what grows here may not show itself in these moments of winter, these moments of time that feel cold, uncertain, but that they are the exact moments needed to create. Again, with those eyes closed, imagine stepping into the same forest. This time it's spring. The trees now dancing with new growth, new life. All a bit taller, a bit broader, a bit more to give. Seeing this beauty, we see the connection they've offered this whole time, never straying from their purpose, but instead knowing that if they just soak in that patience, if they soak in the present moment, that growth comes. We step back from that forest. We take our hearts and our minds inward, asking ourselves the very question rooted in those trees. What grows here? Inside. Are we willing to release? Let go of those times and seasons that no longer serve, knowing that it may feel open, exposed, and vulnerable in those dark places. But knowing that as we step into the uncertainty, we also step towards the light that has been waiting for us, deepening those roots, expanding our branches, opening our hearts and minds to growth we've yet to see. Light, hope, clarity. Breathe in that purpose. Breathe in that path. For whatever grows right where you stand now is yours for the taking. This moment, this place, and this time. Your hands. Don't work alone, but the light that continually guides, warms, and enlightens those trees of the forest is the same light that grows, expands, and enlightens you. It calls to you in that stillness and in that space. As you feel ready, let those eyes float open. And just feel for the last few moments the breath inhaling from the belly the ribs into the chest. And then exhale from the chest, the ribs back into the belly. Inhaling from the belly, the ribs, and the chest. And then exhaling from the chest, the ribs, and the belly. The light within me honors the light within each of you. Namaste. And I wanted to jump on after leading that practice because I found that as much as that practice was about lengthening and strengthening and working through the lower back, it also was an invitation for stillness. And the scripture that comes to mind often with that stillness for me personally is to be still and know that I am God. So I walked out this evening, I'm outside, and it's completely dark and quiet, and stillness surrounds. So my invitation for you is to feel those moments of stillness as they come, to find them, to hold on to them, and use them as opportunities, yes, to listen, but also just to know. And for me, those have been beautiful reminders of God's love for all of us, and an abundance of gratitude for all the hands that make each and every step connected.